Welcome everyone to this presentation on turf populations. A population is a group of individuals of the same species occupying a given area that we refer to as the habitat. Examples of populations include Kentucky bluegrass, crabgrass, brown patch, and mole crickets. Population ecology is the study of a species or organism and their interaction with the environment and other individuals of the same population. Properties of populations include the following. We will discuss the first five, but the demographics, which is primarily the age and sex ratio of the population, we will skip. Population size refers to the number in a given habitat. For example, if we look at a putting green as a habitat, the population size or shoot number for creeping bentgrass is over 100 million. Population density refers to the number of individuals in a given area. For example, the number of grubs might be 1 per square foot. Population distribution is an important characteristic of a species. There are three types of distribution patterns. Clumped, where the individuals are in patches. Generally, this type of pattern promotes coexistence. As an example, these light green spots are poannua patches, which have been, again, established in a clump type of pattern, which may give poannua a more competitive advantage because of better resource capture. Another example where we see clumping is in the segregation of creeping bentgrass biotypes, shown here by the darker purplish patches. Uniform distribution is where the individuals are equally spaced. Native mole crickets, which are carnivores, and they can potentially eat each other if in close proximity, they often create nests equally spaced from each other, which must provide a safety zone for them. Turf grasses at high density produce a uniform distribution. Random is not a common distribution pattern. Maybe seeds from dandelion, for example, might be blown in and randomly established, but again, it's not a common pattern in turf grasses. Population growth occurs when the number of births and/or immigration is greater than deaths or emigration. The simplest population growth model is the exponential growth model, where the rate of increase is greater than 1. In this case, the population is doubling for each unit of time. For example, at time 1, the population is 1. At time 2, it is 2. Times 3, it's 4. And continues to increase at a rate of 8, 16, 32. And then at the last time, it's doubled all the way up to 512. Without any limits on resources or space, the population could continue to increase exponentially. However, there are limits to growth. The depletion of resources or a lack of space, for example. To explain a population's growth where limits are imposed, the logistics equation is used. In the equation, dn over dt equals a population increase, where n is the number of the population, r is the rate of reproduction, and k is the carrying capacity. If we graph the equation, the line is S-shaped and is often referred to as the growth curve. The bottom part of the curve is considered the lag phase. It takes time for a population to build up to sufficient numbers. Now we move into the area of the curve that the rate of increase is obvious. This section of the growth curve, the rate is often approaching an exponential increase. As resources and space become limiting, the rate slows and the carrying capacity, or the maximum number of individuals that the environment can support, is reached. With turf grasses, this would be considered full cover. Looking at the components of the logistics equation, we can see the effect number can have. If we start with a higher number shown here with the blue line, we see the carrying capacity is reached quicker than with a lower number, given the rate of increase is the same in both cases. For example, we could look at a specific disease population, and the initial number of spores is high. In this example, when conditions become favorable for pathogen infection, the onset of disease will occur much quicker at the higher number. Similar situation with rate. The rate of increase is slower with the blue line because the curve is flatter and not as steep in the area where rate increase is the greatest. It will take the pathogen longer to build up to a population that causes disease. Carrying capacity, as previously mentioned, is the maximum population size that can be supported by the habitat. With turf grasses, this would be applicable to a full cover. As we will see in the self-thinning presentation, the competition that exists at full cover within a population is extremely severe. Competition among individuals is termed intraspecific competition. As turf managers, we do have some influence on the carrying capacity. We can add resources like nutrients or water, for example, that may allow for the population to be supported at a higher level by raising the factors involved in the carrying capacity. The logistics equation components, rate, or R, and the carrying capacity, or K, can be used to describe populations. For example, R selecting populations would be, for example, plant population that increase rapidly and lack limits, which would be the case in open areas where little if any competition exists. We describe as density-independent competition. K-selected populations can reproduce rapidly but thrive in mature or limited situations, which are stable environments, which in turfgrass systems would be at full cover. Interactions occurs among individuals, which are described as density-dependent competition. From a turfgrass perspective, weeds can be described as either R or K-type weeds. This table compares and contrasts the characteristics that an R or K-type weed would have. R-type weeds would be annual bluegrass, crabgrass, and goosegrass, for example. In other words, they germinate and grow and develop as fast as they can, put most of their energy into seed production at the expense of overall plant development, like a deep root system, all for the purpose to complete their life cycle before they die due to weather changes. R-type weeds do not like competition from other populations. K-type weeds like dandelion, plantain, and clover tend to live longer than 1 year and put more energy into plant development. These weeds are much more competitive at full cover or K capacity than R-type weeds. We will talk more about populations in following presentations.